A little bit about me. I'm a senior that's about to graduate from the University of North Florida, where I've majored in economics. I was the manager at Aloha Surfing School for 4 years when I learned to basically be a leader and work in a team environment. As the manager, I was responsible for 20 kids that would be teaching each week, as well as 3 to 4 employees that worked right under me. I had to assess my coworkers' abilities and to work with them to get them to operate at an optimal level. But at the same time, we worked as a team, and I encouraged them to just speak up and just help us with the operating process and give us new ideas. As an analytical person, my schoolwork has given me a passion for economics and financial analysis. The projects I've done have really given me like a connection to seeing how economic variables affect like the financial market. For one example, in my intermediate macro class, we had to take gas prices from 1991 to 2015 and run a multiple regression on and see how they affected major economic variables like CPI. What are my strengths? My first strength is my ability to set goals, especially in a team environment. In past projects, I'm always the person that takes the initiative in meetings. And in those meetings, I normally draw out plans on what we need to do to achieve that final goal. This includes setting short-term goals that we all need to meet just before we all meet again. For example, in my strategic management course, we had to play a business simulation game in which we competed against other groups in the class. In our first group meeting, I just made that emphasis that we need to set goals, how important it is, really. And I basically set out plans, drawing up plans on what our goals were that we needed to reach for the final, as well as our following week when the next simulation was due. And we ended up getting second in the project. My second strength is my flexibility. Working as a manager at Aloha Surfing School, I was able to adapt to different circumstances. Each week we had a different group of kids we were teaching to surf, and I had different people coming in and out joining my team. Each person is different, and so whether it was teaching a kid or instructing an employee on how to be, I had to be flexible. I just had to be. And I approached their learning style so that I would get the most out of them. For example, one employee wouldn't listen to me on what he needed to do for cleaning up at the end of the day. I had to tell him sternly in private what his job duties consisted of and what I needed him to do. He continued not to listen, so I was flexible in my approach. I talked to him just to kind of see what was going on, more a little friendly-ish, be a friend type of way. And it ended up being that he didn't know how to do something, and he was just embarrassed to ask. And just being able to approach people in different ways is crucial because we all have different learning styles and the way that we process information. My last strength is my ability to lead. Working at Aloha Surfing School as the manager, I had to demonstrate leadership every day. I was in charge of creating the daily schedule and implementing it. I had to communicate to my coworkers what we were going to be doing and for the day, like what we were going to be doing for the day and what their roles were going to be. And at the beginning of each day, I would meet with my workers and we would just assess the conditions on the beach. And from there, I would just instruct them on what they needed to bring down and what our overall plans were going to be. If there were areas where they needed an explanation, as in one of the cases I had previously just explained, I would explain it to them. If they were not doing their job and that was required of them, I would communicate with them to get them to perform at that optimal level. I had to be the one taking the initiative when things were going wrong. As in the case of storms, I would instruct them what they needed to do to pick up the equipment just so we could get all the stuff up safely and intact. And then I also had to make sure what employees were watching the kids so we could get them up to safety as quick as possible. What is one of my weaknesses? Well, right now, I'm working on being a better delegator. When it comes to past projects and my work at Aloha Surfing School, I always had a hard time giving the complex things up just because I had a fear that they wouldn't get done right. But right now I'm working on it. I kind of just tell them I'm here for you. If they need my help, I kind of just go over the process with them just to see if they know it, and I try to let it go a little bit more. Am I a team player? I'm definitely a team player. Working in my strategic management class this spring, we had to run a business simulation in a group of 5 different people. We all had different majors, so we were all bringing something different to the table. The game consisted of 5 different sectors, which included research and development, marketing, production, finance, human resources, all that stuff. I was mostly in charge of the financial part since I'm an economics major, but the game was so intertwined that we all had to work with each other to make sure that our sections were going well with each other, I guess, and operating at an optimal level, and we ended up getting second. A situation where I had to adjust to quickly and where I didn't have any control. Well, working at a Aloha surfing school, we were obviously in the ocean. So since we were teaching kids to surf, we spent most of the day in the water. One day at camp, while out pushing kids into the waves, having a good time, I noticed 2 fins that were a little ways out from another instructor and his group. And I couldn't tell the kids to just run, oh my gosh, there's a shark. I had to be calm and collect myself and tell the other instructor, like incognito, that, hey, there's a shark coming. You need to get your kids to the beach, but at the same time, keep my level of calmness. And so after doing that, I quickly got my kids to the beach and then instructed all the other instructors in the same type of manner, just so we could all get the kids to the beach as quickly as possible. But it was definitely a nerve-wracking experience, and I had to keep my calm and my cool. What kind of supervisor do I work best for? Well, I like a supervisor that kind of gives me autonomy, that lets me work to my best of my abilities. I also do like constructive feedback and constructive criticism, just because I do want to get better at what I'm doing. At Aloha, the owner of the camp, he actually used to run the camp on his own, would really let me handle it the way that I wanted to. He would observe here and there and make comments what we were doing right, but also would give us some other feedback on maybe how we could fix something or to maximize the effectiveness of teaching the kids. I really appreciated that style of teaching and supervision. One example of how I had to deal with a difficult person, well, working at Aloha Surfing School, we had some people that actually volunteered to help out with our group, and most of the time they ended up being high schoolers that just needed volunteering experience. But so I would delegate them some jobs that were not as involved as the people that were getting paid, just because they weren't getting paid. One volunteer, though, was very distracting and would not listen to anything I said, just because he felt, since he wasn't getting paid, that he didn't need to listen to me. At first, I talked to him privately and told him what we needed him to be doing and why he was here to help, and he still just was continuing to be a distraction. So after talking to him, I ended up going and talking to the owner and seeing what maybe advice he had for me on handling the situation. And we both came to the conclusion that maybe it was best that we talked to him together and explained to him what we were looking for from him, and if he continued to act the way that he was, that he would no longer be a volunteer and there would no longer be a future for him to work at Aloha. And he ended up stopping it, but you definitely don't want to show that type of behavior, especially for a prospective working place.